DJ PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone, and we are joined now by Mike Folta, Utah Mammoth radio voice. Mike, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Catching me right before we hop on a jetliner to cross the country and say hello to New York. We'll be in the Empire State for the ball drop, which will be pretty fun. But in the meantime, we're keeping up on all the Kyle Whittingham analysis. And look, our play-by-play guy on TV, Matt McConnell, is a huge Michigan State fan. And he had all the respect in the world for Kyle Whittingham. But then once he saw that maize and blue at the press conference, it broke his heart. It broke his heart because he had come to like Kyle, and now he is obliged to root against him as a Spartan. So at least somebody on the broadcast team feels very strongly about the move. I'm sure you guys and a lot of the listeners do as well. But strange times in the Utah sports landscape.
Kyle loved on a night off in the spring to go down and sit behind the glass and watch guys skate into each other and just blast each other into the boards. He's here for all the physicality and all the big hits you can provide.
He does. We had a bunch of stars at the game last night as well. We had Bubba Watson, two-time Masters champion, at the game last night. I believe Lowry Markkanen and Coach Will Hardy were there for the Jazz as well. They like to come quite often. So, yeah, it's been a who's who at the Delta Center for Mammoth games recently.
Yeah, I would guess you would see Kyle at Detroit to watch the Red Wings because he has long since been a hockey fan, and talking to him, he was excited to have the team here. My guess is that he will follow them from a distance because he's been to several games and he is a hockey guy. And the great thing now for us is that college football obviously ends here. The Utes finish up. There'll still be off the field stuff with coaching and whatnot and the transfer portal, as you know. But now, to me, now's the time we turn our attention and we really, really start to dig into this team to see what they're going to do this year. And immediately, right off the bat, I can argue of all the stretches of the season, January could be the most important.
I mean, you nailed it. You nailed it, PK. Like it is kind of a put up or shut up month for the Utah Mammoth. They call this stretch in the NHL like the dog days of the season a little bit. You're kind of right in the middle. You can't see the end. You can't see the light at the end of the tunnel quite yet. But Utah's next game will be the halfway point of the season. And we've got 15 games in the month of January coming up, including 3 in New York and New Jersey to start off. We'll play the New York Islanders on New Year's Day, and then we'll play the New Jersey Devils and the New York Rangers at Madison Square Garden. But a 7-game homestand coming up in January for this team as well. And this is a big homestand coming up for a team that hasn't played a lot of home games. The Mammoth, entering last night's home game against Nashville, Mammoth had played the fewest home games out of anybody in the entire league. So that's been a big disadvantage for this group. And now that starts to swing back in your favor, where you are playing some more of these home games coming up in January, February, and March, you got to find a way to take advantage of that. Mammoth weren't able to do that last night. They fell 4-3 to Nashville. But I think back to last year when things started to get harder and harder for Utah, and the Mammoth had a 7-game homestand last year, and they had a losing record. They went 3-4 during that homestand. So they didn't really capitalize on any momentum in that stretch that you would get from being home. Now, they had some injuries in last year's homestand. They lost Dylan Gunther. They lost Logan Cooley during that stretch of games. So they were fighting that battle from an injury perspective. But nobody's feeling bad for you in the NHL, and everybody's going to experience injuries at some point throughout the year. And so this 7-game homestand coming up that we'll get to in the middle of January is going to be a huge stretch for this team. And the month as a whole is going to be big. Utah is basically playing every other day. There's a couple of stretches of rest in there, but it's going to be a great opportunity for the Mammoth to climb into a wild card spot. They're only a game out right now. But if you start to slip in January, things can pile up on you quickly. And they did a little bit for Utah last year where you saw a couple teams kind of sneak up and put themselves in between the Mammoth and that playoff spot.
What happens in the last 10 minutes of a game when one slips away? Is it a lack of concentration? Is it just key mistakes? Are there flaws in the team being revealed? Because it looked like everything was going right and then suddenly it was going wrong.
Yeah, I mean, last night is what you're talking about when Nashville scores twice in the span of a minute and a half to take the lead in the third period. And really, nobody was sweating in the Delta Center all night. Like Utah was in front or it was tied for the whole game, but the Mammoth couldn't find a way to get that next goal, and they never made it a 2-goal game. And I think that is part of the story, DJ, where the Mammoth did let it slip away and they allowed those 2 goals in the third. I kind of look at it from the opposite side where Utah failed to score. They failed to extend the lead. The Mammoth had just so many chances in last night's game to extend the lead and to make it a 2-goal game. And they never once could do that. And it was everybody, right? Like everybody had opportunities. Nick Schmaltz had a bunch. The rookie Daniil Boot had some good looks in tight. But for whatever reason, the Mammoth weren't able to execute. And that's what you heard from guys in the postgame media scrums, weren't able to execute and finish. And maybe you can expect that a little bit in the first game back from Christmas. You know, you're all full of eggnog and Christmas cookies and the like. But the execution on the offensive end was just off a little bit. But this is something that this team has to figure out. The Mammoth have blown I think the second most leads in the NHL at this point. And so finding ways to finish games and be confident playing with the lead is something that winning teams are able to do. And that's something that this team is still trying to find a way to do this season.
Yeah, Mike, I mean, that's it. You listen to the Bear Torney talk about that, and it sort of seems like a broken record a little bit, and he was going off on that against following the Nashville game. And so the word that comes to mind, I think that he's been using, and I can see why he's using it, is frustrating, because they're there to be able to put themselves in that position that you speak of, but not quite getting to where they need to be. It's close. It's tantalizing. You can see it. It's not way down the road. It's like right in front of your face. And, and then Cooley's goes down and all, and that's a blow. And it just seems like there's a level of frustration, and they've got to find a way to just break through and get on the other side of it. And it seems it's like Phil Mickelson, he had to find a way to win the major, and he was trying, and it was there, and he was there. Once he got it, he leaps in the air. He had that 4-inch vertical leap that has become famous when he made that putt at Augusta. And then he goes on and he wins a few more, right? And so there needs to be that breakthrough. How do they go about, or what do they need to get that breakthrough? Because it's there to be had.
Yeah. I think the golf analogy is a good one, and mentioned Bubba Watson being at the game last night at the Delta Center. I think back to his shot at the Masters. I can't. Would this have been 2014 where he hits it out of the pine straw? Yeah, and I think he plays he was it a slice that he played, or he had some crazy angle to hit it out of the pine straw, out of trouble, and get it to a safe area and have a chance at par. But it's the plays like that where you just have to make a play. Like, there's no analytics that are going to make you feel any better at the end of the day. You have to find a way to get it done. Comes down to execution. I think poise, just like we talk about this last year a lot, haven't talked about it this year as much because I think the team's been better at it. But managing games and being poised in those crucial moments. Utah took a penalty in the third period last night that led to the game-tying goal from Steven Stamkos, who's one of the great goal scorers of our league. And I mentioned analytics not making you feel any better, but I am still going to try here for a second, because we get the numbers, the broadcast team, we get the numbers from our friends over at SportLogic. And one of the numbers that they give us is expected goals, which is a little bit hocus pocus, but it does kind of give you a snapshot into who controls the game. And the expected goals is basically the analytics community just telling you how many goals they expected you to score based on your scoring chances, based on where they came from, based on, the quality of those chances. Utah was expected to score twice as many goals as Nashville last night. Utah was expected to score like 4.5. Nashville was expected to score 2. And to put that, like, if you're not familiar in the hockey analytics world, I'm going to put it in like football terms. Say you double up a team in yardage, right? You double up a team in yardage, you're expected to win that game, right? But turnovers and penalties, things like that can totally negate the yardage stat at times. And that's kind of what we had last night. Utah was the better team. And if they play that game 10 times, Utah probably wins 7 or 8 of those games. But Nashville is an experienced team. They've got guys like Steven Stamkos, who's a legendary goal scorer. They've got guys like Philip Forsberg and Ryan O'Reilly who have been doing this for a long time. And those guys stuck with their game and came through in the big moments, whereas the Mammoth are still trying to figure that part out.
In all those analytics, are there any parts of the game, are they a little short everywhere and that's the thing, or is there one part of the game where there's something you look at and think that's got to get better? There's a big gaping hole here and they got to improve.
Ooh, that's hard to say. It's hard to say, DJ. Like, I think this team has played really well the last couple of weeks, and we're saying that. And in the 12 games without Logan Cooley, Utah is now 4-8, which is not good. Like, that record's objectively bad.
Right.
And yet, in most of those games without Cooley, without your most dynamic offensive player, you're walking away and thinking, like, man, like, we played pretty well. We lost to LA. We lost to Florida the first couple games without Cooley. We played pretty well against good teams, just came up short by 1 goal. I think DJ, one area that we were focusing on the broadcast last night are 1-goal games. Like, the Mammoth do not have a great record in 1-goal games. They're like right at 500, which, okay, it's not terrible, but you'd like to see that be better. Whereas Nashville was a team that's below Utah still in the standings, and yet they have a positive record in 1-goal games. Like, they find ways to pull those out late. And I attribute that a lot to their age and experience, where Utah is still a younger team. Mammoth have a bunch of cup winners on this roster. So you'd like to think that this group can figure this out a little bit better than what they have so far. But you think of the guys who are driving the play, especially offensively for Utah, the guys who are out there in the big moments, guys like Dylan Guenther, Clayton Keller, Logan Cooley when he's healthy, JJ Peterka, those guys are pretty young still. And so even though the Mammoth do have a lot of cup winning experience, most of that's on the back end. They're defensemen. They don't have as much of the experience up front with the forwards. So it's hard to put a finger on it, but winning these 1-goal games is something that you're going to have to start doing here, especially against divisional opponents, because the schedule is not going to get any easier opponent wise for Utah. The schedule is going to get easier in terms of rest and recovery, things like that, and travel. But you're going to be playing a whole bunch of divisional games throughout the next few months. And a lot of those are going to be tight games. We've seen a ton of tight games in the NHL this season. And winning those close ones, especially when it's tight late, when you grip the stick a little bit tighter, when everybody is a little bit more aware, that's when you've got to buckle down and find a way to at least earn a point.
We've got a situation at goaltending. What is the plan going forward, short-term, long-term, rest of season?
Yeah, so Vitek Vanacek was put on IR, and the rule with injured reserve is that you have to be out a week, essentially, and he was put on IR. Karel Vejmelka. I don't know. I might have said Vitek Vanacek.
Yeah,
Karel Vejmelka was put on IR.
Yeah.
And but that was retroactive to the 23rd. So that's when it starts. So today's the 30th. So he's eligible to play in Utah's next game, which is coming up on New Year's Day. So he was skating at practice, and we're not sure exactly what the injury is. Hockey people love to be mysterious about injuries, and goalies are known for being a little weird, so maybe they're being extra mysterious. But we saw Carell, Utah's number one goaltender, at practice skating, so that leads me to believe that it's not overly serious, and I wouldn't be surprised if he plays sooner rather than later, even as early as Utah's next game. Again, not sure the severity or the nature of the injury, but he was practicing. Didn't look like there was anything wrong with him, just from a bystander's perspective. So would expect Utah's bell cow to be back in soon.
Is it really the case you think of the team is good, but you take a dynamic player like Cooley off it, and they just don't have the depth to replace him, whereas another team, a better team, might?
Yeah, I think you look at the contenders, and that's certainly the cup contenders. Yeah, and that's certainly the case, right? They just have more of that star power compared to a Utah team. But again, I kind of alluded to it. Like, I think the team has played really well without Logan Cooley, and I think one thing we've seen is Dylan Guenther, Utah's other like really young star, has kind of stepped up in Cooley's absence. We actually saw this last year. In a few games where Guenther was playing and Cooley wasn't, Guenther stepped up and was scoring goals. And one thing you'll notice, and just keep an eye out for this while you watch Mammoth games, Guenther plays a little bit more straight line and attempts fewer skilled plays, skilled passes when Cooley's out of the lineup. And I think because when Cooley's in the lineup, him and Guenther both have so much skill, they play together. Sometimes they can try and do a little too much. It seems that they're looking for that highlight reel play, that tic-tac-toe passing play to walk the puck into the back of the net. Whereas when Cooley's out, you see Guenther kind of just put his nose down a little bit more and play harder and play a little bit grittier maybe. And that's been working for him because he's scored, I believe it's 7 goals now without Logan Cooley in the lineup. And he has scored 8 goals in the month of December here, which is actually tied for a team record in terms of goals in a calendar month. So Dylan Guenther has elevated his play without Logan Cooley. Another element to that, DJ, is that Nick Schmaltz, who's traditionally been a winger, has moved over to center, and he's played really well at center, which is a harder position to play than wing. There's typically more defensive responsibilities. I would compare it to like being a middle linebacker as opposed to an outside linebacker. You're a little bit more involved, and maybe that's not a perfect one-for-one comparison, but there are more responsibilities as a center, and Schmaltz has taken that on really well, kind of filling that number one center role that Logan Cooley has left vacant. And Utah doesn't have great center depth as a team compared to other playoff teams. But I still like the way that Jack McBain and Barrett Hayden, 2 more centers on the second and third lines, have played behind Schmaltz, because those guys, they win a lot of battles. They do a lot of the little things. Jack McBain was in one kind of mood last night. I mean, he was hitting everything that moves. If he would have seen PK on the glass, he probably would have broken through it and given him a jolt or something like that. But he was hitting everybody, and he does more than that too. He provides offense, and he wins faceoffs. So I think without Logan Cooley, Utah is definitely less dynamic and less scary off the rush and in the offensive zone. But Nick Schmaltz has stepped up, and Dylan Guenther has stepped up as well.
Speaking of McBain, there was a lot of pushing and shoving going on. It seemed like every couple of minutes you're on the verge of something, and then it's just really, just a lot of talk and hugging each other and whatnot. I'm wondering, is that a level of maybe a little bit of a frustration, or was just as in the game presented itself to have it be where these guys are just touching each other like they were?
Oh, I think it was just too much time with the family over Christmas.
Is that what it was?
The guys were all wound up from all the warm and fuzzy family time over the Christmas break. They needed to hit something. Okay. But I think a lot of that had to do with Nashville too. That's a very prickly Nashville team, and the Mammoth weren't going to get pushed around. That's for sure. You saw McBain in the middle of it a lot. You saw Sean Dursey in the middle of it a lot. It was a really fun hockey game, and Dursey told us as much on the radio. Mammoth just couldn't find a way to come up with a result.
Mike, we'll leave it right there. Enjoy that plane flight to the Big Apple. You're going to be able to unpack, set up shop there in Gotham for a few days.
Yeah, I got my Depends with me when I make it over to Times Square to check out the ball drop. So if you see,
I'll be watching, man.
Screaming with the
do something, do something to stand out because they always pan the crowd.
I'll bring a Kyle Whittingham jersey or a poster or something like that. How about that?
Nice.
Go blue. You don't like the blue either.
Yeah,
You're
right.
a Purdue guy.
Oh yeah. Look, Kyle Whittingham at Michigan will never lose to Purdue. Like, that is the last guy I want to see in Ann Arbor. He's going to steamroll us for a decade. But no, enjoy it, guys, and we'll see you here in a couple weeks when the Mammoth are back home.
Never say never. That's what people used to say about Indiana, and look at the Hoosiers now. You never know, Mike. You never know.
Don't get my hopes up.
Okay, all right. Take a break. When we come back, we're giving away Utah Jazz tickets to see the Dallas Mavericks. Stick around for that on the other side of this break. Mike's appearance is presented by Hercules First Federal Credit Union. At Hercules are celebrating the everyday victories. Hercules First Federal Credit Union, growing stronger together. Stay with us.